Well, first of all, I think it was my brother who was really interested in it. He used to listen to New Orleans jazz. I never knew what it was about because I'd been going to piano lessons and playing sort of light classics and things. So I was mystified by what he was listening to. I didn't like it. But every morning when I was getting ready for work, there was the BBC Light programme, music, always nice tunes and things. You begin to pick up tunes. And they used to put things on like Sid Phillips, things like that, which was sort of Dixieland, very arranged. But I began to figure out where the melody was. And it was usually from the trumpet. And that's what I liked about it. So I began to like it and then listened more. Then there was bands that would be visiting Edinburgh, like the Freddie Randall Band. I think that was mentioned earlier, but that was he was my idol at that time. I used to go to concerts. I actually met him and had supper with him one night, and he taught me a bit about lip exercises and how to look after the instrument, and that was good. That was how I got into it. Then I started work. I was an apprentice organ builder, and the apprentice ahead of me by 1 year, he was interested. He was one of these outgoing lads who was singing all the time, and he told me about this jazz club that he was a member of in Edinburgh, and he coaxed me to go. And this was every Sunday night, and it was called the Condon Club, after the American jazz man Eddie Condon. And it was every Sunday, as I say, and it was in India Buildings, and it was about 4 floors up, and the musicians had to cart all their gear up these stairs. But the room that it was in wasn't very big. Well, I don't know how many people it would hold, but we usually packed it, and the band that was playing there at the time, the main one, was called the Nova Scotians. They were a sort of well-established band. The leader was George Crockett, a drummer, and should I go all through the names of the guys in the band? At that time, there was a piano player, Bert Murray from Fife. The trumpet player was Bob Harley from Fife. Clarinet was Jack Graham. Trombone, Ian Anderson. On tenor sax, it was Johnny Winters. And the band changed over the time. But as I say, I used to go every week, and I got to know the people, and eventually I was on the committee. I ended up being the treasurer of the Condon Club. And every Sunday afternoon, we would go and set up the gear for the evening performance, the lights and all sorts of things. The old spotlight with the coloured lights in it, and the band rehearsed there, and I got to know all the band, and they knew I played trumpet, and they let me sit in occasionally. So there was one, even on their gigs, I went along and I would get a sit in. So I'd only been playing trumpet for about 10 months at the time when the trumpet player and the piano player decided they were going off to London to make their fortunes. So because I knew the arrangements and knew all the guys, I was brought into the band. So I was very fortunate to be playing for such a short time and going to an established band. I mean, they even had two vocalists, a male and female singer, and the gigs, a lot of dance gigs. So, see, in those days, the dance music wasn't all sort of pop, but it was just quick steps, foxtrots, waltzes, and you just got to know tunes. And they brought in a guitarist called Jim Bakey, and that broadened the scope of the band, and we used to do Scottish stuff, and it was a good learning curve, actually, yeah. So that's how I got started.
And were you still working as your, in your organ apprenticeship? In the organ
building, I was still an apprentice, yeah. It all changed, of course, when I was 21, and I had to go to the RAF, and that was a different scene altogether in the RAF, playing in the station band and things like that. And I did 18 months in Aden, so there was no station band there, but I got to know, how through the grapevine you get to know all the guys, and various bands out there playing Officers' Mess, and I was earning more money playing in the band than I was for my wages. So that was, I did 2 years in the RAF, and then when I came back, I went back to the organ building for a short while. Then I was offered the chance to go to Germany with the Pete Kerr's jazz band. And that was that was going to be my beginning of my professional career. And that lasted 2 months. There was two months in Germany. It was slave labour there. Every night we were working from 8 till 2, and the band, some of the guys in the band were professional, and a bit of friction went on, and so it wasn't a happy scene. The accommodation wasn't good, but it was hard work. Now, it made me realise that being a professional musician wasn't for me. So I came back, and then that's when I was approached by Archie Sinclair and Mike Hart, who they had formed the Old Bailey's Jazz Advocates. That was, I came in there, I was asked to join temporarily. I think it was Fraser Gold they were going to get, but many, many years after I was still temporary, so that was the Old Bailey, the start of the Old Bailey band, so started a bit for me. Various personnel in the Old Bailey band over the years. Archie that ran it, unfortunately, he was killed, Archie. And we sort of broke up, and it was reformed by Hamish McGregor, who's the clarinet player. And we just went on from there, and that's what can I say? What else would you like to know?
I'm going to take you just back a little bit.
Aye.
So, quite new to the trumpet. So how presumably all self-taught. So tell me how you kind of find your own style and how you actually learn.
How I learned? Well, I bought an old second-hand trumpet because when I was in the Boys Brigade, I used to blast on a bugle occasionally, and I just liked the idea of playing trumpet. Taught myself, really. I couldn't understand, well, I don't know if you understand this, but I brought a trumpet tutor, a book. I think it was the Harry James Trumpet Method or something like that, and it gave you the notes of C, and I could read music a bit. C, and then I couldn't understand why I was playing a C, but it didn't sound a C on the piano, so I thought I'd got a bad trumpet. I thought the thing was all wrong. But anyway, that's how trumpets are. They're in B flat, and that was that. And then, just as I say, going to listen to the local band, the Nova Scotians, and just kept practicing on my own, and that was it. Really, that's probably a bad thing, mind you. I wouldn't say that anybody should be self-taught, because I'm sure I got all the wrong things. But anyway, I developed my own style. I used to listen to a cornet player, was my favourite, Bobby Hackett, his name was, American player. And I just loved the sound and the style and everything. But that's how I started, just self-taught.
And how has it sort of changed over the decades, the Edinburgh scene?
Oh, well, there was more when the Edinburgh Jazz Festival started. Musicians were coming out of the woodwork. I don't know, a lot of dance band musicians started to play the jazz, as they called it, and the guitarists bought banjos, and there was an awful lot of music in pubs. It was all pubs, but also there was an awful lot of big dinner dances and things like that going on. The old Bailey Band, we used to play in the assembly rooms. I'm sure I must have had a season ticket for the assembly rooms at one time. It was all, I used to go in there, and then I sort of branched out a bit too, as into sort of dance bands like Cam Robbie, Jim Bakey, and once again all the music and the big balls. But jazz bands were also employed with these things too.
And did you play with visiting jazz musicians?
Yeah, well, I remember we've done a couple of concerts with famous jazz musicians. There was the old Bailey Band played with Bud Freeman, American. He was over for a tour, and we did 2 nights with him, and Wild Bill Davison. He was another American. See, these guys were idols of ours when I was in the early 50s. And the fact that I've actually played with them was a dream come true. You know, these were just names. We never thought we'd ever meet them, never mind play with them. And when I was with the Scottish Jazz Advocates, and that was a sort of offshoot from the old Bailey Band, went into that, and we, with Mike Hart, and we went to Sacramento, the Jazz Festival, and I played with quite a lot of famous musicians there. It was great. I played with Johnny Guarnieri, a piano player, Eddie Miller, played a gig with him. There was a guy, I've forgotten his name, Dick, I need to edit that. Anyway, he a trumpet player who was on the soundtrack of Pete Kelly's Blues. He played a gig with us. Bob Haggart, that was the Bob Crosby Bobcats, did a gig with him. And yeah, it was good. Played with quite a few.
So were you still, if you had your 2 months in Germany and thought professional musician, not for me, so how were you managing your both bits of your working life? What did that look like?
Well, when I came back from Germany, I didn't want to go back to the organ building, mainly because it was one of these jobs where you could go in on a Monday and then say, you're away to Belfast next week for a month, and it didn't fit in with my idea of playing, because I always wanted to play music, whether it was professionally or semi, but that was my main interest in life, was playing. So I got applied for a job in an office, and that was that. I've just always managed to have a job along with the playing.
And looking back, what are the memories that really stick in your mind?
Oh, some fun we had. One thing we always seemed to happen in those days, cars weren't reliable like they are today, and most gigs out of town there was some breakdown or punctures or things. But I always remember there was one gig with the Nova Scotians, or some members of the Nova Scotians. I think it was Haddington or something. I had an old 1934 Morris, and I picked up the drummer with his gear in the car, did the gig. On the way back, the other car had broken down, and we tried to squeeze the guys in, and one of them, Johnny Winters, the clarinet player, there's a fold-down luggage rack in the back of that old car with a spare wheel there. He sat in that luggage rack, holding on to the spare wheel, all the way back to Edinburgh, while he was singing Bye Bye Blackbird at the top of his voice. I think that was just to make sure he was still there. But things like that, lots of fun and breakdown. I remember once with the Old Bailey Band, we were in our bandwagon going to Hoyk, I think it was down that way. We used to play down there about once a month. We broke down going up the mound, and that was about it, It's good, happy days.